Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is the Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, Season 2, Episode 2, and the name of this episode is Manhunt. I am really loving this series because a lot is being revealed in this series, because there was a lot more to this whole murder story than a lot of people know, and I'm glad that they're doing this where they're actually showing, there were certain things that we didn't know that actually took place. So let me begin with, in the opening of this episode, it's March 1994 in Miami, and we see that Gianni Versace and his lover Antonio are at this hospital. And we see that Gianni Versace is dressed kind of incognito. He has a hoodie on with glasses. We come to find out that 3 years before he passed, he was actually diagnosed with HIV. And we see him meeting with the doctor, and they're saying that there's treatment, and medication available. And in this situation, he actually talks to the doctor, and he tells her about, he actually had an older sister named Tina, before Donatella was born. And at 10 years old, she was struck, I think, with peritonitis, I think. And his family sent him to live with his aunt. But eventually, he couldn't stay away from his family too long, so he finally came home. And when he walked in the house, he saw his sister lying in an open coffin with flowers around her. And pretty much what was crushed inside of him was that this whole idea that, he believed that if you're sick, you can always get better. He realizes that's not always the case, so he's kind of questioned his own mortality, now that he's been diagnosed HIV positive. And, we're starting to see that he's experienced some of the symptoms where he's weak and he doesn't have a lot of energy. We see that he's laying down, and then the next thing we see that Antonio is there with him while he's lying down, and then Donatella comes in and they talk. She pretty much says she wants to talk to him, so Antonio excuses himself. The two of them talk, and she says, "What is Versace without you? Who am I without you?" And we actually see the closeness that Donatella and Gianni had, and she pretty much was like really saying that she pretty much was, there to comfort him during this hard time. After they had that moment, she comes out of the room. Antonio's sitting outside, and it's become more and more clear that Donatella does not like Antonio. They do not have a good relationship, because we saw in the last episode when she had said you only have one job to take care of him, and you couldn't even do that. So now it brings more clarity as to why she made that statement, because Gianni ends up HIV positive, and him and Antonio, from what we saw from the last episode, have an open relationship where Antonio likes to bring guys home, and they pretty much sometimes have sex together, or sometimes Gianni would have sex with the guys, or sometimes Antonio would, or they would do it together. But they kind of had that kind of, open situation in their relationship. And, Donatella was pissed, because also Antonio was like, "You hate me, don't you?" And she said that, I don't get you. You have this great life, and, you have this nice house, and obviously that wasn't enough for you. You had to bring more men. Now, if that's what floats down your boat, it is what it is. But why'd you have to drag my brother into it? And he said because he wanted to. And I'm not a villain, and your brother's not a saint. I was like, oh shit. And pretty much she says, and he says that, and he wanted to, and she's like, no, honey. He wanted you. He just went along with it because he wanted you. That's not what he wanted. He just went along with he just went along with what you wanted to do. He has a weakness for beauty, but unlike him, I'm not him. So I don't suffer from the same thing. And then, like, you know, she pretty much said that, you know, he wanted a family. You know, he wanted stability. And then, of course, you know, Antonio admits, like, look, we're not allowed to have that. And during this time, you know, gay marriage was not legal. So he's saying it's not allowed. You know, and she said, you could have found a way. And he was like, well, what difference does it make? Because all you're going to do is just, all you've ever done was fucking blame me for everything. You never accepted me. You've never respected me. And she said, stability, safety, and children. If you would have given him one of those things, I would have had respect for you. But you have given him absolutely nothing. And she walks off. But we definitely see that does tug at Antonio because it does come back to play later on. So then we see that Gianni and Antonio walk on the beach. We see that Johnny's weak and he's feeling very down, you know, about himself because he's saying that, oh my God, never in my life have I felt like this. You know, I don't feel like I can go on. You know, I don't have energy to do my work. And now this is the first time in my life I'm jealous of people. I'm jealous of that guy. Because these people are healthy and he's not. So they walk on the beach and they finally come back and Donatella is in front of the house. And he pretty much holds both of their hands and he says that, look, I need us to be a family. That's the only way I'm going to get through this. Then we get the day after Versace's death, July 16th, 1997. Donatella watches from the window as all the fans and, you know, admirers lay flowers at the foot of on the steps of the house, and she is just emotionally devastated, and she's just crying her eyes out. So we actually see that yes, she grieved, but she grieved privately. But when it came to the public, she got it together. But we see that this situation of losing her brother tore her to her core, and then all of a sudden she runs into, while she's walking to because she's leaving, and you know she runs into Antonio, and he's like, Donatella, and she was like, he's dead, Antonio. We don't have to pretend anymore. So I was like, damn. So she's like, you know, fuck you, literally. You know, we don't have to pretend anymore because you know we don't like each other. We just kept up a front for him. But now he's gone, so it is what it is. So we actually see that finally, once the gate of the house opens, the paparazzi are going crazy, taking pictures left and right. And we see that she goes to make the funeral arrangements. We see that she goes to pick out she comes there with the suit and they dress him up, and we see throughout this whole thing she is just emotionally. You know, she's emotionally wrecked, but she's doing her best to keep it together. And pretty much what ends up happening was that they end up, you know, cremating him, and they put, you know, his urns in a little casket. And we see her and her husband get on a plane because I think they actually had like a funeral, you know, in Italy where they're from, and then, like, you know, while they're on the plane, Donatella and her husband, she pretty much talks to her husband. She said that the funny thing for him to survive it was kind of funny that for him to survive, for him to be killed like this, meaning him surviving HIV, yet to be, you know, murdered, you know, by a serial killer. So then it goes back to May 1997. We see that Andrew Cunanan is he's in Florence, South Carolina. He's driving the red truck. He's already killed 4 people by now because the red truck belonged to the 4th victim, who was in Jersey. we see that this fool pulls up to a Walmart, switches the license plates. So we're kind of seeing how Andrew was able to pretty much get away from detection from the FBI and from the Miami locals. This is how he was able to do it, because he knew he was pretty much always ahead of them. Like, you know, he just knew how to, you know, manipulate the situation. And then we see that while he's changing the license plates, a little girl's looking at him, and he gives her like this sinister smile. Yo, I actually have to say, dang, what's his name? I'll come back to it. But I have to say, the guy that's playing Andrew Cunanan, he's doing a phenomenal job. He literally is drawing me in, and I'm just seeing more and more how sick and twisted and how much of a stunt queen Andrew Cunanan really was. So he puts, so he pretty much he changes the license plates, gets in the car. He's eating cookies and milk. He listens to the radio. He hears that they're talking about the case, and the authorities have his name, but they haven't been able to track him. Then all of a sudden, he turns on the radio, and the song Gloria is playing, and this bitch starts singing it, and is just as happy, but this bitch is literally being wanted for 4 murders, and he's on his way to commit the 5th. So he's just completely just in a fantasy, you know, and he is just singing his life like it's nothing. Then we see he goes to this rundown motel called like the Normandy Plaza. He sees a portrait of Marilyn Monroe. Then he books a room under the name Kirk Demars. Kirk Demars, which is a French name. So then he starts his stunt queen bullshit, where he starts talking about, oh, I'm from Nice, and I'm here as a fashion student, and Florida is just a place to be, and, you know, I'm a big fan of Versace, and, you know, we're gonna have lunch and all of this, and, but the patron, you know, he's kind of like rubbed elbows with her, so she pretty much likes him, but she knows him as Kurt. And she gives him a room, and, you know, it's like this rundown place and everything, but, you know, he literally goes into the place, and next time we see him, he's going to a store, he buys a camera. He literally goes to Versace's mansion and literally takes pictures of the house. He also takes pictures of the emblem that's on the door. He takes pictures of that. So he literally builds like a shrine to Gianni Versace in his room with all of these pictures and news clippings and all of that, and also stuff from magazines. So he literally has created this shrine where he's literally worshiping and obsessed with Versace. So we already see he already has in mind who his next victim is going to be. And then, like, we see that he checks his wallet and sees that he only got like a few dollars on him. So we already see, okay, he's now plotting. He's going to now plot a way to get some money, and he's probably going to try to get it the only way he's been getting it, by manipulating and screwing older DL men. And I'm going to get to that. Next, we actually see that the FBI has now gotten with the Miami police, and pretty much they put it out there that this guy is wanted for murders. He's killed 2 in Minneapolis, 1 in Chicago, 1 in Jersey. You know, and pretty much they're saying that, yeah, we need to get flyers out, you know, flyers out to all the gay clubs and all of that. But then the FBI guys, like, so we already kind of see that they're not all on the same page, you know, the FBI and the local police. And, you know, he's saying that we need to just focus on more of the straight clubs because he's known to frequent those clubs and that's where he does his business. Yeah, but he also parties with the kids, so he goes to both. So they start running the flyers to get him out there, but a lot of places that his flyers should have been didn't get there, and probably if they were there, they probably would have caught him sooner. So then we see this stunt queen at work yet again. Andrew is in front of the mirror and saying, like, I don't want to be a pain. I don't want to be a pain. Sorry, I don't want to be a pain. Then we see this is he's literally practicing what he's gonna say, you know, to the tenant that's working the front desk of the hotel. And what he did is that he tried to open the windows and see if he had no view. So now he's in the mirror practicing, sorry, I don't want to be a pain. Sorry, I don't want to be a pain. Sorry, I don't want to be a pain. And then we actually see him go and talk to the tenants like, sorry, I don't want to be a pain, but I actually came here to see the beauty of the beach of Miami, and my room has no view, and I wish I could, you know, if it's possible, can I get another room where I can see the beauty of Miami? So because she likes him and he's rubbed elbows with her, she pretty much gave him a room and is like, don't tell nobody. So he ends up getting this, you know, room with a balcony where he can actually see. I mean, because I have to say, he's very intelligent. He knows how to manipulate, and he definitely is very well spoken. So, you know, pretty much he's a sociopath. I mean, sociopaths have that ability. They can literally make you think they're normal, and they're not. So she's got a soft spot for him, and she knows him as Kurt. She gives him a new room, and he finally goes on the balcony, and he sees this guy out there. And we actually come to find out this guy's name, I think, is Ronnie. And him and Ronnie kind of spark a friendship, but Ronnie obviously was attracted to him because, you know, Andrew was attractive. So they pretty much he goes downstairs to meet the guy. The guy's name is Ronnie. He's HIV positive, and pretty much they kind of like, you know, they kind of spark like a little friendship or whatever. And, you know, pretty much they both talking, and one thing they got in common, they both like drugs. So what ends up happening, you know, they get on the beach and they're like talking and you know, talking about each other and everything. And he was talking about, you know, I mean, pretty much Ronnie was open up about what it's like living with HIV and how much it's destroyed his life, and, you know, and he's like, you know, he pretty much, you know, they sit on the beach and they start talking, and, you know, Andrew talks about how he's just lost his best friend and the love of his life, you know, which is true, but he killed them. But he's making it, but he's definitely, Ronnie is really drawn to Andrew because he comes off as this very nice and very genuine person. And from reports, you know, from documentaries, you know, people who were friends with him said that he was like the best friend ever because he would give you the shirt off his back. You know, he was that kind of friend that was very supportive. He had a hug for you if you needed it. So we're seeing this side, you know, where he can develop a true friendship, but these people really don't know who he is. He's only kind of presenting what he wants to present to them. So while they're on the beach, he kind of notices this older man checking him out. So he's saying, okay, you know, yeah, because the thing about it, Ronnie, he reason why, pretty much he told Ronnie that he's looking to score, you know, trying to get some drugs, but then, of course, Ronnie put it together the way that they score is by, you know, finding some man, you know, giving them a little something, and then he gives you something in return. So he sees this older guy, and he's like, okay, I got my mark. So him and the older guy go to his hotel room, and the older guy's like, okay, you know, I'm willing to do anything. I can be very submissive if you want. And he was like, that's exactly what I want. Next thing you know, he's literally taping this guy's face with duct tape, and has completely taped his whole face up where he can't breathe. This guy is literally suffocating. He's playing Easy Lover by Phil Collins and Philip Bailey, and this fool is in his, you know, Speedos, you know, nice body, by the way. He's in his Speedos, and is like dancing around, and, you know, the guy is literally suffocating, and he has a pair of scissors, and I'm kind of questioning, is he about to kill this guy? But the guy is like literally struggling and fighting for his life, but he has literally suffocated this dude. And so pretty much, you know, he's trying to suffocate this guy, and the dude is like literally fighting for his life. He's grabbing the mask trying to remove it, but he has taped him up so steep that there's no way he can remove that tape. And, you know, all of a sudden he gets on top of the guy and he pokes a hole in the mouth, so now the guy is able to breathe. And then we see that not only did he get money from the guy, he literally has ordered room service and has got most of the most expensive things on the menu. And pretty much he gives the card to the guy and says, okay, put this on my tab and make sure I get my card back. This bitch, being the stunt queen that she is, she still got to put on a performance. Oh yes, I've had this before. You know, some of the best champagne, some of the best foods. She drinks the champagne, drops the glass, and walks out. And I'm like, this bitch. The guy is completely shooken up, and he now sees how crazy and demonic Andrew Cunanan really is. He goes to call the police, but he chooses not to say anything because we actually see in one of the little one of the little holders, he had his wedding ring in there. So he's a married man. He's a closeted married man. So he pretty much was about to file a report on this guy because he robbed him, literally. You know, not only did he take his money, but then he, you know, ran up a high bill on, you know, in the hotel. But then he gets on the phone, is about to call the police, and chooses not to say anything. So that was another way that they could have caught him, but because this guy didn't want to come forward, because it meant it would have been him outing himself, he chose to stay quiet. Alright, give me a second. Alright. Okay, then we actually get so after all of that goes on, we actually get a scene with Gianni and Antonio. That at this he's pretty much doing this big fashion show. It was actually the last fashion show he did. It was in July 6, 1997. Gianni's having an issue with the models because he says the models look too thin, and you know, Donatella, who is his creative director, she comes in, and the two of them go back and forth, and it's about creativity because Gianni's like, I don't want my clothes to be represented by these skinny models. I want women who eat. I want women who are happy. I want women whose personalities shine, because that's what makes the clothes work. Me as a designer and as an artist comes second to the woman, you know, breathing life to the clothes. But of course, Donatella has a different way of looking at fashion. She's saying that, look, you know, I got you models, I got you fit ones, so they're fit. Like, let's just get out here and get the get clothes on these girls, and let's just have a great show. But then he also tells her of his idea of how he wants to end it. And she's saying that won't work, it's not going to be a success, but he says, trust me, it's going to blow people away. Because he said the last dress is the girl, she has like a silver dress, but she has a veil with it. And that's going to close the show. Like, you know, pretty much it's, the model as well as the designer have a marriage and they bring about something beautiful. So we really see how passionate and how creative and how deep Versace really is when it comes down to fashion and when it comes down to modeling. So pretty much, Donatello was like, okay, fine, you do it your way, I do it my way. Let's see who wins. As we see, Gianni took it by storm. People went crazy, and the show was a success. And he kind of gives a look to Donatello, and Donatello was like, you won, you know. So it was cool that they definitely fought like brother and sister, and they fought hard, but they loved each other hard as well. So that was really interesting to see that. So then we actually see that Andrew and Ronnie are getting high. They're pretty much freebasing cocaine, and Andrew then goes in the bathroom and starts taping up his face and starts doing all this shit. And Ronnie, I think, is kind of picking up that something ain't right about him, but he likes him because this is probably the first guy that's been nice to him in a minute. So he pretty much tells him, I'm going to go take a shower. And he literally goes in there to tape up his face and does all of this crazy shit. So we're really seeing how demented Andrew is. Then he comes out without taking a shower, changes his clothes, and then the guy Ronnie's like, okay, we're out, of drugs. And he's like, okay, we'll just have to get some more. Alright, what else happened? Alright, so then we also get a scene with Gianni and Antonio, and this kind of like explains like how they had like this open relationship. Even though they've been together for 15 years, they brought a lot of partners in their bed. And pretty much what's going on there, Gianni is at his desk sketching, while Antonio and this guy are kind of fooling around on the bed. He tries to get Gianni to join them, but he's like, oh no, I'll be over there in a second, but you go ahead. So he takes off his Speedos and he jumps back in bed, and they fooling around, and Johnny's actually watching it, and he's loving it because he loves Antonio. And then we see them at the pool, and he pretty much says that I don't want to do this anymore. I just want you. I want to marry you. I want us to be together. And like Johnny's like, you're saying this at the light of day. Let's see if you say the same thing when it's night. Because he knows that when at nighttime, Antonio got that libido, and when at nighttime, it's a totally different situation. He's ready to mingle with some men and bring some men home to have sex. Then we actually get a scene where Andrew has this coin that he wants to pawn to get money. And get this, there are FBI fugitives on the board except for his. And in this situation, he actually fills out his real name because he had to fill out a form in order to pawn it. So he puts his real name because I think he notices there's no FBI warrant, there's no FBI post about him, even though he knows he's being wanted. Even though he knows he's being wanted. So it just goes to show how much of a slick son of a bitch Andrew Cunanan really was. Then we actually see that Andrew goes by the house, and he sees this woman who's dressed like Donatella trying to act as Donatella to get into the house. She's like, let me in, Johnny. I'm your sister. Let me in. And he's like, you know what, honey? And then we see Johnny comes out on pretty much on the balcony. He pretty much lets her know, like, sweetie, I'm not letting you in the house. I think you're adorable, but I already got a sister. I don't need another one. I already got a Donatella in my life. And we see that so Andrew finally sees him there. So next thing you know, we see that, as I said, he has built this shrine. He's tore the shrine down. And then pretty much he tells Ronnie that, it was good spending time with you, but you're never going to see me again. I'm moving on. And then he's going to leave, and then Ronnie's like, you ain't get any money, did you? He comes back, gives him some money, and he says that if anybody asks you we were friends, don't tell them anything. So it says, so if people ask you about me, say nothing. So we see that now he's ready to put his plan together, because we saw him get the book and put the gun in his backpack, and he rolls out. So then we actually see that he begins to kind of troll them, because he actually sees, I think he actually sees Gianni and Antonio. It's nighttime. They obviously are dressed up, so they're going out. They pretty much, and we see that when they get to the club, they automatically VIP. They don't have to go through the line. They can just walk right in. Where Andrew had to go in line and had to have a pass to get in. Antonio and Gianni are there. They're pretty much having a good time together, and they eventually leave. And Andrew was hoping to get in there so he can get close to Versace, but he ended up leaving before he got in there. But while they were leaving, Antonio stops him. He says that, I don't want to do this anymore. All I want is you. I want to marry you. And that happened right before, a little bit before he passed away. Antonio finally said that he didn't want to bring in more men into their relationship. He just wanted to be just the two of them together. And that made Gianni happy, because it obviously, Donatello was right. That's what he really wanted. He just wanted, a man. He wanted safety, security. He just wanted the life with the love of his life. He didn't want this access of just men coming in and out of their bed. But he loved Antonio from the core, so he went along with it. And Antonio began to realize that, and Antonio made it right, but sadly, he was killed shortly afterwards. So we saw that go on. Yeah. So then we actually see that because we said that Andrew went to the club looking for him, but Gianni and Antonio had already left. So he finds this guy on the floor. They start talking, and he pretty much says that, oh yes, and he's being the stunt queen, talking about how he knows Versace and how he's into fashion and how he comes from wealth and he comes from this, and then he pretty much says that in high school I was voted least likely to be forgotten, which was true, and that's where it ended. So next week it's gonna go. I think they're gonna start talking about when he murdered Lee. I think his name was Mean Milligan, who was in Chicago, and we're gonna see his wife. And I think Judith Light is playing the wife, so I can't wait to see that. So that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. They're listed they're all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next episode of the Assassination of Gianni Versace. So until next time, everybody, take care.